I became interested in the manuscript when I watched a study by Alexei Kungurov. He had a series of lectures about the flooded St. Petersburg. In one of the lectures, he mentioned the Voynich Manuscript, the similarity of its letters to Russian, and even read the name of a plant. However, the name had an extra letter, which by Charomutny law could have been a hard sign in the word's middle. After that, I set out to figure it out and eventually found the key to the translation. Here's what I discovered. The Voynich Manuscript is an illustrated codex presumably written in the first half of the 15th century by an unknown author in an unknown language using an unknown alphabet. However, I dated this book to the 16th or 17th century. There will be information about this below. The book is named after the antiquarian Wilfred Voynich, also known as Mikhail Leonardovich Voynich, who acquired it in 1912. In 1961, the bookseller Hans Kraus bought the manuscript from Ethel Voynich's heir for $24,500 United States dollars, and in 1969 he donated it to the Beinecke Rare Book Library at Yale University, where it is still kept at present. The manuscript has been intensely studied by amateur cryptographers and professional cryptanalysts, including British and American codebreakers from World War II. However, no part of the manuscript has been deciphered. Multiple failures have made the manuscript a famous topic in cryptology. To this day, there are many theories about the contents, purpose, and authorship of the manuscript. According to some theories, it is written in an unknown artificial language or in one of the European languages, encrypted by an unknown method. Well, I have determined that the language of the manuscript is Charomutny Russian. Charomutny Russian is a language where vowels and consonants are replaced with similar ones, and the text is read syllable by syllable backwards. The book Verbs of Russian Sages helped with the translation. Of course, it didn't have a transcription for the Voynich manuscript, but the book had an exercise on how to develop the ability to understand Charomutny text. In the chapter What is Hidden in Your Name, the initials of Alexander Sergeyevich Pushkin were decoded. The author suggested decoding your last name, first name, patronymic, and those of relatives and top politicians. Basically, that's what I practiced on. I have a higher technical education, I'm an electrical engineer, and I also have additional education as a director, actor, video editor, screenwriter, and musician. Perhaps this set of professions helped me decipher the manuscript, because the manuscript itself has a certain melody. This melody, according to the laws of directing, has an introduction. At the end, a finale uses the last word to reveal the meaning of the entire text, which seemed meaningless before. For example, let's view the page with the fifth flower. What do we read here in the mysterious language? Having stopped struggling over the completely joyless demons, having enslaved the fighters, having lost the pride of ancient reasons, honorable milestones, good neighborliness, flocks, the people have made fools of themselves. If you think about it, you can rephrase it by stopping the fight against the grim monsters. The people made a fatal mistake. However, in such a text, you can see the author's touch. This is one of the ways to search for the author of the manuscript among the literature available to us. But my engineering education helped me in translating the diagram of an aircraft engine. Page 126. Let's read. A simple type of bladed fuel devices of the hydrogen high-speed piston type, manifested by supplying the piston stoppers of the blade axis to the right side of the starter. At the time this was written, planes were already flying at full speed on hydrogen. I know a lot about aircraft engineering. As an engineer, I found it easier to spot words like piston, starter and blade than a linguist might, since they wouldn't expect these terms in a medieval manuscript. As a way to check my translation, I used chemical elements. For example, the translation gave me kalit vodi. When I entered this phrase online, I found a similar term, colloid of water. In this way, I confirmed the accuracy of my translation. To practice Charomutny, you don't have to study many languages. It's enough to be a child at heart. Being a child doesn't mean being naive. Being a child means crossing the boundaries of what's allowed, going beyond the rules and laws. That is, to always be in the flow, and then the universe will pour out any information you need. Kon are divine rules that are above human ones, while law is human norms and rules that lie outside the boundaries of Kon. The single feature that unites all types of Slavic writing is syllabification. Runes, marks and cuts, Old Church, Slavonic and Sanskrit, all these forms of the Russian language are syllabic. Here is an example of marks and cuts as well as Russian runes. Syllabic writing is considered more advanced than alphabetic writing due to its greater variety of sound combinations. Each Russian caste had its own writing system scheme, but the syllables were the same. Charomutny appears not only in written sources but also in architecture and embroidery. You can read the message by using the table of the historian Gennady Stanislavovich Grinevich. So, the Voynich Manuscript is written in symbols that resemble Russian letters. Sometimes you don't even need to decipher. In the first illustration, the word is prostorach. The first letter is mostly read as per, but it can also be read simply as p, or as another consonant that can be substituted. In the second illustration, the word is skovano. The first symbol is also read as two letters, but mostly as one consonant that can be substituted. In the third illustration, poroda Govorov is highlighted. Here, P is pronounced as P, not combined with R. Since the Russian language is syllabic, a syllable requires vowels and consonants alternating within a given word. Thus, manuscript letters resembling vowels will be treated as vowels and those resembling consonants as consonants. However, this will only be the case in 80% of situations. Sometimes, in certain words, a vowel becomes a consonant, but only to maintain the rule of alternating vowels and consonants within the word. Basically, translating the manuscript is like solving a crossword puzzle, where you see the number of letters in a word, assume that vowels will alternate with consonants, and use a few fixed consonants as reference points to guess the word. Example from the Voynich Manuscript, 3rd page, 2nd flower. The reason of the gods. Your image is always rich with the dawn of knowledge over vice, with paradoxes born from sacrilege. Your behavior is as if you are shackled in the vastness of standing, or do you accidentally justify your enemies, girding demons for the hell of fasts and banditry? First paragraph, first illustration. The breed of conspiracies gripped the ancient forefathers to fiercely wage a bloody war in obedience to the simplest law, to stand as a wall for the joy of God. It may look translated, but that's not the full decoding yet. There are still two more levels of reading this text. First, you need to remove unnecessary spaces, and where needed, add them, and also replace the vowels and consonants using an intuitive method. Then return to the original text and split it into syllables from the end. Also swap vowels and consonants as needed and write them in reverse. For understanding, here's an excerpt from Ruslan and Lyudmila as an example. He to whom fate has destined a maiden's heart will be dear. To be angry at the universe is foolish and sinful. The second reading with vowel replacements and spaces. To whom fate is inevitable, found, and whose heart is destined. To whom fate is unnoticeable will find, and whose heart is born, he will be dear, in spite of the universe. Noah is angry, it's all foolish and sinful. To drown, the only evil in the universe, we are all angry with foolish sinners. For the third reading, we return to the original, divide it into syllables, and then read it backwards, where a combination of two consonants needs to be inserted into the vowel. For the third reading, we return to the original and insert the consonant syllables into the vowel. That is, our heroes have been trying for half an hour to persuade the Fox Maiden of the present Fox clan. Next, hear from the note just succederà se chavidei, but namirilene yubodi sumuko. To confuse you while lying down, enchant you, and get pregnant solely to have an abortion. For more details, watch the video Watch for Everyone. The Voynich Manuscript was written by Pushkin. The link is below the video. The second level of reading in the Voynich Manuscript is done in exactly the same way. In the earlier example, it's page 3, flower 2. I took some screenshots for us to review step by step. Nechano is bound in the open spaces. Like O. Standing to you. The symbol saint here is read as ST standing yours. Yours, that is Virago V. This NR is read as R, comma. This is Opoya S, VAP, ya SV. This is read as P. Besov, the symbol ST is sometimes read as S or SIT, and this figure 8 is read as B. The symbol 8 is often read as V, but sometimes it represents other consonants like B. Part of speech stuff, this is N. In rare cases it's read as P. The usual ones are read as D and O. This figure 8 as to band it. Here we see the root band. Letters can be mixed per the Charomutny law, allowing swaps. SIT is read as ST. The figure 8 represents V, but here it's B and here it's V. One D and N are swapped, and in their places it becomes U. Saint turns into a vowel. The stroke becomes a letter according to the rule of alternating vowels and consonants. Well, it's complicated, yes. Ustav, this here is like ST, and if I and EV are in the middle, they become any vowel. Here it became the letter A. The treble clef as an additional symbol can be a vowel, a consonant, or even a comma, depending on the second level of reading. An additional symbol can be a dot or the letter O if it stands at the beginning of a word. If it's in the middle, it becomes any vowel O, A, U, I, and so on. When translating into regular Russian, it's important to place periods and commas correctly, because during further deciphering, commas and periods can also turn into additional letters. That's why sometimes I don't use punctuation marks in translations. Foreign languages aren't subject to Charomutny, though Latin was sometimes partially Charomutized. What is the Voynich Manuscript about? The manuscript talks about ancient times when people hunted vampires. They are evil spirits, demons, and I think also aliens. But one day, the elders decided that it was unfair and that everyone has equal rights to exist. That's how the Voynich Manuscript was written and the Night Watch was created. However, the old Slovaks continued to destroy demons outside the terms of the agreement. The agreement involved humans, vampires, and an overseeing party, but now no agreements are being discussed. As a result, vampires, let's call them that because of their fondness for humans as a food source. They seized power, destroyed the overseeing party, their agreement, and the human side's agreement. Thus the agreements were forgotten and the vampires became the sole rulers. Thus, the Voynich Manuscript is the enlightenment from the last truth-teller, with a copy of that very agreement. In the 1990s, information on extraterrestrials was declassified. At that time, Yuri Petukov released his book Galaxy 1-2, where he published drawings of aliens from declassified archives. I combined these drawings with the plant illustrations from the manuscript and realized that they matched. Why were they drawn in the form of plants? I think for different reasons. If there had been depictions of vampire aliens, they might have destroyed the book and it wouldn't have survived to our days. But this way, in a hidden form and through the centuries, we can learn what happened in those times. Here you can see the head of this alien, kind of hearts, these edges, what a handsome guy, right? Anthropophage, armored head, five-legged, also bioandroid RS. Whiskers, like these whiskers, the little head and this little head. How much it looks like that little head, it's hard to say, but the mandibles are shown like this. Mandibles, Vantus's neck. This is Vantus's neck. They likely identified it by parts. Perhaps for contemporaries who knew the types of these creatures well, the comparison with these alien plants was clear. Hypnohumanoid, harpoon tongues. What handsome guys lived back then, right? Everyone who loves the Middle Ages with swords and elves, but they wouldn't want to live side by side with creatures like these. And here the little head is marked, the tongue apparently. Here's a shaggy-headed spider humanoid, the eye is marked, the shoulder somehow, claws. The Charomutny language in other sources. As an example of Charomutny in ancient sources, I present the Phaistos disc, which historians attribute to the Minoan culture. The first reading of the spiral from the network, the wind speaks in its own language. Crisis plays. In response, having lost the power of words, the dead will die, the dead will die. A lump of pus has grown at your throat. Tear it off or it will get inflamed later. Second reading of the mystery. Section, the yoke, the thief barks with his branches in response. The axis of the riverbeds of losses and the measures of your runes will die out. The growth of mountains, the womb of a plant, tear it off, or you will inflame people later. Third reading. To my Torah with gifts. To my Torah with a tirade seeking Velis. Raise to you, you are both you and Rago. I seek across the river with my rod's lands, the faith of the grey-haired Volok. Rago is the second name of Veles. Another example of a magical text. To gain life from losses, to live so for us, just look back, and where you haven't found laziness, spit into the loins until you recognize the lie forever and ever. The animals here have turned their heads and are attempting to spit into the loins. I found this picture in a group on vContacted. The group said that this is a sample of writing from before Kirill and Mefodir. Another example is the Arakonsi Codex, written in the 16th-17th centuries like the Voynich Manuscript. The text uses Charomutny Russian, but researchers have not grouped the Arakonsi Codex and the Voynich Manuscript in the same language group. I dated the Voynich Manuscript to the 16th-17th centuries based on the word Verstania, which then referred to land given to Cossacks for service. Moreover, the swallow loopholes on one of the pages of the manuscript match the swallow loopholes found in Transylvania, in Count Dracula's castle where the Codex Arajonka was written. Here is a brief translation of the Codex Arajonka. Count upside down, ignoring the picture's top to bottom order. Page 11. The sun will show us worlds, the ocean. It's dangerous to play with our sun. The grayness of sleep and evil spirits must be erased. The motherland calls her to defend it. Step onto the rainbow of space. It lets her out onto the grass and she will find the ocean. Page 12. The canon of words dims the eye and gets wet and darkness. The translation is not complete. Image 2. Below the picture, at the bottom, the rider is the Lord, blissfully guiding the foolish donkey. In some strange way, the little donkey carrying the rider to God from the Codex of Arakonsi is connected to the donkey from the decoding of Pushkin's poem Winter Morning, where the author, having a golden little donkey, blesses the house from afar. The Codex of Arakonsi itself resembles a Bogomil hymn, written by adherents of a mystical Gnostic religious and ideological movement that was popular in the Balkans during the High Middle Ages. This refers to the 11th to 15th centuries for ritual purposes. Pushkin's poem Winter Morning. Frost and sun, a wonderful day, you are still dozing, my dear friend. It's time, beauty, wake up, open your eyes from sweet sleep, greet the northern aurora, shine as the north star, and so on. Let's decipher this text in the mysterious Russian. Haze and sleepy. The shadow is a miracle, like a wall. You are searching, you are dozing, the work is sacred. The mountain of beauties has abolished the hunt. Closing the secrets of their gaze, lying back, sowing fierce poison, light, paradise of the north, appear, replace for us, niches howl, and the sky was angry with the moon, the gloom, Satan mows like delirium, but I am a spot through the clouds and the dark ink of the sky. Having a golden donkey nearby, the house makes the sign of the cross. The rest of Pushkin's deciphering is only partially clear. Light, paradise of the north, appear, replace for us, niches howl, and the sky was angry with the moon. Here it talks about ancestral pillars, fences, altins, which were buried in the ground. When there are no pillars, the niches figuratively howl from the absence of pillars. Having a golden donkey nearby, the house makes the sign of the cross. Link to the Arakonsi Codex. So, encrypting the text is not a whim. It is very important for peace on Earth and its stability. To put it simply, stability is when everyone does their own job according to their purpose and doesn't interfere in other people's areas of activity. They don't boss people around there. That's why castes were created. A peasant whose destiny is to till the land should till it. But by no means should he govern the state. Every cook when she can become president. And a Vityaz who possesses skill doesn't necessarily have to be a peasant. The same applies to knowledge. Old books had iron covers with hinges and locks so that no one unnecessary or foolish could touch forbidden knowledge. Now it's unclear why that was necessary. Information is open to everyone on the internet and available to anyone. However, information can be harmful. You don't need to look far. Take YouTube, for example. An ignorant layman reads a book on nuclear physics and makes a video where he spends half an hour explaining that he didn't understand anything, mocks the author, and jokes around. And there are plenty of such commentators and bloggers. The point is that serious comments and specific suggestions on nuclear physics from an intelligent person get lost in all this noise and are basically drowned out. But if the book were locked and access to it was only open to serious people who are knowledgeable about the subject, then it would be much more useful. It's the same with the Voynich Manuscript. Until I found the key to the encrypted text, people were just flipping through the book. As soon as I unlocked it, angry comments with swearing and profanity started pouring in. See for yourself, just scroll through my video comments. And if I were in the modern cast of scientists after going through debates and arguments, I would be able to publish my theory in scientific circles, immediately without extra issues promoting the translation widely. This encryption protected the text of the specialized caste from foolish people, led by skillful manipulators who have their own plans for humanity. Encryption made it possible for this knowledge to be preserved in such books. Today, it's popular to have varying views on Earth's shape, mainly split between globe earthers and flat earthers. I didn't want boundaries, so I made my own system for building the world and Earth. In my opinion, the Earth consists of two hemispheres rolled into a tube in the shape of a heart, with their point of contact resembling a black hole that pulls in matter. This is what creates the effect of the planet moving in a circle. In reality, the matter of the planet simply passes alongside the Sun, but the planet itself does not rotate. Below is the map of Orontius Phineas. I assumed that it is encrypted. Here's the jester with all his details on the map before us, and we, in the role of the king, must correctly connect everything that has been presented to us. I connected it like this. Other combinations may exist too. It's interesting that this structure of Earth has an axis Adolf Hitler sought. In addition to the axis, the system assumes a motor, probably a direct current one, since the drawing shows a two-pole magnetic system. Red and green like a magnet. This motor could be the Earth. The heart shape is unique in that the left side has a positive pole on the outside and a negative pole on the inside, while the right side is the opposite. This is how the Earth's pseudo-rotation is explained, since the right and left hemispheres are twisted, one outward on the left, the other inward on the right. This flow of spatial energy creates a vortex. Such a vortex causes the axis to move. The moon has an opposite set of magnetic axes, which is why it always faces us with only one side. It can't be any other way, because its magnetic field holds it in this position. The sun has a round shape and also an opposite set of poles compared to the moon. The axis itself may be mechanical or immaterial, but it operates according to the laws of mechanics. So, for simplicity, I chose a mechanical model of the Earth. The axis section facing the moon has a right-handed thread, while the section pointing from Earth to the Sun has a left-handed thread. Essentially, the swastika symbol shows the direction of the Sun's rotation according to celestial mechanics. Therefore, the reverse swastika is lunar. This explains the existence of two swastikas. And now, in Hitler's reverse swastika, his main goal can be seen to return to the past by changing the leading part, instead of the sun to make the moon the leading one. However, this is impossible with only one axis and identical rotation for both bodies unless the axis splits into lunar and solar parts. The Earth's design allows for returning to the past and correcting mistakes that might threaten the future. Then, if such a mechanism exists, there must be a person or a god who could control the Earth and save the population from cataclysms, disasters, violent deaths, and so on. But judging by current events, the mechanism is idle, no one is controlling it, no one is protecting us from disasters. That's why it becomes hard to believe in the existence of God. But this system explains the theological question, how God is able to watch over everything and know everything. How can he know where every ant is crawling? But if you imagine that the Earth is permeated with nerve endings and this bundle is connected to the helmet of God who sits at the axis mechanism and monitors trouble and then, if necessary, is able to turn back time, then the model doesn't seem so fantastic. You just need a special kind of person, a god who can quickly solve several tasks at once, like a king. And here we return once again to the Fool card. The main mystery is why a card of the planet is shown instead of a face. The planet describes its problems and God, like a king, must decide what to do. And this work has no days off. Probably the Mandela effect is not related to the collider but to unprofessional work with the Earth's axis. Many wish to return to the past, and if such a place is poorly guarded, then a person with mercantile interests could get in there. If it's Shambhala, then it's clear why Tibetan monks are trained in various martial arts to guard the axis of the earth. Returning to the diagram, any engine can break down. For instance, the engine might stop and the starting instructions could be missing. So what should we do? I suppose the Boreisky runes can help us with this. Let's take the first rune, Path. It shows 3 levels. In the center is the diamond, Earth, above is the moon, below is the sun. The second rune is Protection. It doesn't have either the sun or the moon in its depiction, but it does have 2 crossed axes. These are the planetary axes as shown in the diagram, and this rune is a close-up of what you should focus on. Interesting elements are slowing down, speeding up, ice and fire. These diagrams show the sequence in which you need to activate the axis. Both elements depict swastikas, showing the direction of rotation of the sun and the moon. Volkov, from Words of Russian Sages, predicts that new knowledge of language, conscience and light will bring a world without wars and universal understanding back to the planet. This will happen thanks to the increase in the critical mass of people living by the law of conscience. Volkov has no doubt that this will happen because his previous predictions have already come true. We just have to wait a little longer, but we shouldn't waste time. We should enlighten ourselves and others so that these times come sooner.